To order our meeting for today.
Recording in progress.
In general housekeeping, please, everyone, if you are participating I'm looking at these notes here. This is interesting. Yes, if you're participating virtually, please mute your computer in order to reduce feedback during this meeting. And please, everyone in the boardroom, turn off your cell phones and mute any other electronic devices. I will call on directors in the following order: Director Gracia, Director Bloomer, Secretary Treasurer McKenna, and of course myself, and then President Ortega, who is not with us here except remotely. Hi there, Paul. And so at this point, I'd like to, pardon me, well, I've just rolled in here. Let's have a pledge of allegiance. Please stand with me, please. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Assistant Secretary, Board Secretary Sylvia, will you please do a roll call?
Director Gracia?
Present.
Director Bloomer, her absence is noted. Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
Here.
Vice President Bowman?
Here.
And President Ortega?
Present.
Now's the time for public comments on items that are not on the agenda. This is a time where the public may speak on any item that's not listed on the agenda. Do we have anyone online, Sylvia?
Online, we have Marion Champion and Robert Griffith. I'm not sure if David Freeman. I'm not sure if they wish to speak, they could unmute themselves or raise their hand.
Okay. And have you received any public comments on items that are not on the agenda?
No emails have been received for public comment.
Wonderful. And is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on a topic that is not on the agenda? All righty. Now we go to the agenda items. Any public, I'm trying to figure out, I apologize for this. Yep. There we go. That takes us to the consent calendar. Does anyone on the board wish to pull any items that are on the consent calendar?
No.
President Ortega, anything there?
No, thank you.
Then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Move item 5 as presented.
Motion by Director Gracia. Seconded. Seconded by Director McKenna. Roll call vote, please.
Director Gracia?
Aye.
Director Bloomer's absence is noted. Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
Aye.
Vice President Bowman?
Yes.
And President Ortega?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Wonderful. Take us to item 6. At this point, number A, request acceptance of revised cost of service study for portable recycle and wastewater rates. Finance Director.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President and members of the board. You have before you the revised cost of service study for potable, recycled, and wastewater rates. As you recall, on April 4th, we had the cost of service study workshop, and the Board of Directors had accepted the cost of service study as it was presented with one modification, where we would not automatically implement the revenue stabilization rates when the revenue had dipped under 10%, variable consumptive revenue dipped below 10% for that month. So we have made that change, but there was one additional change that we located that needed to be made. For the cost of service study performed included all in-scope rates, but historically, DWA staff has prepared the temporary construction water meter rate, but we had preferred to request NBS to independently calculate this rate for us, so it was no longer internally calculated, and requested them to do so. And the table within the staff report is a highlight of those rates. The current rate is $2.60 per 100 cubic feet, and that is proposed to go down in year 1 to $2.48 and then escalate from there, up all the way up to $3.16 per 100 cubic feet in January 1, 2028. So that is the one minor change that has been made to the report that has not been previously called out. And just as a refresher, that temporary construction water rate is used for all metered and unmetered services used for construction and temporary services. And those connections are also charged a fixed monthly rate based on the size of the meter, which is typically the 3-inch monthly service charge. There is no fiscal impact to this change because these are not adopted rates, but just being added to the study so we can include them in the Prop 218 notice. And it is staff's recommendation that the Board of Directors accept the revised cost of service study for potable, recycled, and wastewater rates. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Director Gracia?
I don't have any questions. When you're ready, I'll move the item as recommended.
Director McKenna?
I have no questions.
President Ortega? You are muted right now.
No questions.
Very good. Then we have a motion to accept by Director Gracia. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Very good. President Ortega seconded. And any other discussion? Then a roll call vote, please.
Director Gracia?
Aye.
Director Bloomer, her absence is noted. Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
I'll abstain on this, please.
And Vice President Bowman?
Yes?
And President Ortega?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Very good. That takes us to 6B. And Ms. Metzger.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President and members of the board. We are before you today with an item that may seem very familiar. We discussed at our last meeting moving from Stage 2 of the water shortage contingency plan back to level 1 or stage 1, which is kind of the ever-present level in absence of a shortage or a regulation. The board, with one request that we not issue any citations for level 2 infractions from March 24th forward, accepted that recommendation, which was contingent upon the State Water Resources Control Board taking action to ease the emergency drought restrictions as the governor had somewhat directed them to do in his March 24th announcement. Now, about 2 days after Desert Water Agencies Board took that action, the Association of California Water Agencies was in conversations with staff at the State Water Board, and they indicated that they may just not take any action and allow these regulations to sunset in June of 2023, 1 year after implementation. So, that is something that we were both frustrated and flummoxed by, letting them, having them continue to keep a rule on the books that they have expressed they will not enforce. So what we've seen other water agencies do, including our neighbor CVWD on April 11th, is actually proactively take the action regardless of the fact that there is a regulation still on the books. So that's what we are looking to do today, is to go ahead and trigger that re-entry to level 1. And what that will do is we will, as we stated, we are not citing customers currently, but we will now update our website, push information out via social media. We will actually have to publish a notice in a newspaper of circulation. So it will be a big outreach push if the board elects to take this action. Now, if the board does not elect to take this action, we will remain in level 2 until further notice, because even when the provision from the State Water Board sunsets, the board action as it was accepted was contingent upon State Water Board action, not their inaction. So we would remain in level 2 until the Desert Water Agency Board, felt otherwise appropriate. And just to reiterate, the reason Desert Water Agency is in a shortage level 2 was not due to any real shortage of water as determined by our annual water supply demand assessment, but we moved to level 2 because we were mandated to by the governor's call upon the State Water Board last year. So at this time, we would ask that the Desert Water Agency Board move to exit level 2 and re-enter level 1 of Ordinance 72 and the Water Shortage Contingency Plan.
Very good. Director Gracia.
Well, I've always thought that we should be on this issue lockstep with our adjacent agencies. And I didn't catch yesterday's MSWD meeting, but I heard the work session. It sounded as though they were just going to let it expire, like the state, Aqua, I guess. And I was at the meeting at CVWD and frankly can't recall how they voted. You indicated that they voted to end it now? Is that?
Yes, sir. They rescinded their
Right.
all of their penalties effective April 1, and they also re-entered level 1 on April 1st, or I'm sorry, April 11th.
So I would move that we follow CVWD's lead on this so that our media, we're all in the same media market and that mixed message gets out there and people just kind of aren't sure what to do. So I move the staff recommended action. I'm sorry.
Okay. Director McKenna?
Yeah, I watched the Mission Springs Water District yesterday, and they opted to continue with their restrictions until the state restriction expires. So now we have one agency that says, oh, we'll just wait, and another agency says, we'll do it April 1st. So we're in between. I'm just worried, are we in any kind of trouble if we exit level 2 and the state hasn't? We're not?
No, the State Water Board staff has indicated they will not be enforcing those regulations. The governor was very clear about his direction on March 24th that water agencies were no longer going to be required to be in level 2 of their water shortage plans or implement those actions. So I believe they are just taking a hands-off approach, and my understanding is the reason they are not bringing this forward is simply administrative. They don't want to deal with the procedural things that go along with bringing it back to the table.
Well, I have to say that just makes it difficult for everyone else. But I'm inclined to go forward and exit level 2. I think that sends a good message to our customers. They're expecting it, so let's do it.
Right.
So I'll second that motion. I don't want to cut off the discussion, but I will be seconding it.
Right. And President Ortega, your thoughts?
I fully support this this request from staff, and I think we just need to again, as Secretary Treasurer McKenna has indicated, I think our public is expecting this, and I think we should move forward.
Very good, and I also agree with the staff recommendation. So, Director Gracia, do you want to make that motion?
I make a motion, we approve the staff recommendation as written.
Very good.
Seconded?
Seconded by Director McKenna. Roll call vote, please.
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer, her absence is noted, and Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Aye.
Vice President Bowman
Yes?
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And that takes us to item number 7, the Probowski Research Survey results. Ms. Metzger.
Thank you again, Mr. Vice President and members of the board and the rest of the team here. I'm really excited to introduce Adam Probowski. He has done survey work for virtually every water agency in California and most of the municipalities. He's been a pleasure to work with over the years through Desert Water Agency, through CV Water Counts, and he's very well known here in the Valley for his work. And we're pleased that his team completed a survey recently. The survey dates were March 23rd through April 5th, and they worked with 2 audiences. So they collected information both from the Desert Water Agency retail audience for 300 respondents so that we would have statistically significant results within the retail area. And then we took the same approach with the non-retail area. So we had 2 exclusive pools of results, and he's going to present them here today. And the survey was conducted in both English and Spanish to be as inclusive as possible. And you have a packet with not the full report, even though it's very hearty. This is only a small portion of the report. We actually have all the information with folks' verbatim responses to every question. So if you want to dig in deeper than what you have in front of you, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to provide that. And with that, I will let Adam take it away.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Members of the board, thanks for allowing me to present. As Ashley explained, it was a robust survey. Just for context, our typical statewide survey might have 900 or 1,200 respondents. So 600 in Desert Water Agency is very robust. I will, I think I've got a clicker here, and if you go to like slide view, that will, the bottom right. Oh, is it working? That little slide view at the bottom.
Excuse me, Mr. Vice President, but I cannot hear the presenter at the moment.
That's
It doesn't
probably better,
seem
huh?
That's much better.
Okay,
Thank you.
fantastic. All right. So robust sample. To give a sense of how we reached out to people, we reached them in the ways that people are typically communicating. So talking to people on the phone. Some of those people were on landlines, only just a few, because most people talk to us on mobiles. But the vast majority responded online. So responded to an email or a text message. But really reached out to everyone in the preferred method that they chose. I wonder if this is on. Yeah, it's just the presenter view. If that. Okay,
So let me go back. Hold on.
Oh. I'll give you a, we got somewhere. All right, let me go back. I think if I have control.
Is it still not working?
I mean, it was closer, but technology doesn't love us sometimes. I'll give you a quick heads up. We're going to look at some key findings here. Let's see here if I have control. I don't have control. I'm going to turn it. Okay. Yeah, we can. Let's just go to the demographic slide, and we'll pass the next one, and we can just go from there. Okay, if we can go back. what we'll, as Ashley was saying, we have a full report that's about that thick that you can read through. It's some bedtime reading. Includes the open-ended responses, kind of give you that rich understanding of what people say versus just some charts that we're going to go through. And of course, there's some other customer reporting, and anything that staff's going to need from us is going to come afterwards. But today we want to go through some of those big key numbers that are really going to, I think, drive perhaps some of your big decisions. If we could go to earlier on in the, okay, yeah, here we go. Let's start with where you are with the next one, yeah, let's go to the next slide. And just quickly, this is your customer base, both retail and non-retail. This is your service territory. So just give you a sense, you're a little bit different, right? You've got a higher male population than most parts of America. And then this just kind of gives you a sense of the income levels and language spoken and things like that. We can go to the next slide. This gives you a sense of home ownership versus renters versus households with children, which is also a little bit lower than most other parts of America, but not terribly surprising. You've got big chunks that are within an HOA, but also big portion that isn't within an HOA. And then, of course, we matched your election districts as well with how it actually lines up. We can go from there. And also just to give you a sense of the full-time versus seasonal, people's living residency. Obviously, most people live here full-time, but we did capture that seasonal folk as well. All right, getting right into the real numbers. We'll go to the next slide, and here's some key findings. 73% have heard of you as an agency. You've got a majority that approve of the job you're doing, and 49% trust you to make smart decisions. We'll see some of these numbers in a minute. This is where I say this is not an academic exercise. We're not trying to get 95% every single time. This is America. We don't agree on anything. If we get 50% plus one, hallelujah. So at 73% or 53%, you're doing really good. At 73%, are we going to see the next time we do this in a year or 2 or 5? Are you going to see some massive improvement? Probably not, because we don't see big numbers in the 80s and 90% typically. At 53%, if you give your outreach staff a bunch more money, can they make those numbers improve? Sure, but it's all going to be incremental. You've got support there for providing the fact that you provide a valuable service. 65%, 75% say you're doing just as good or better than kind of, I guess, your peers, right? Other government agencies and utilities. 94% say it's important to save water, even when you're at all times, essentially. And we're going to get into some of the recommendations when it comes to messaging. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll kind of dive into the big numbers. We ask an open-ended question. The first question is, what's top of mind? What's the most important to them? Most important here, clearly, is homelessness is what's top of mind for people. Also, what's important to note is water isn't really big on this list. It's not what they're thinking about. Sorry. That's not what they're thinking about every day. We'll keep going along, and we'll get to the next slide. And so who recognizes you, right? They recognize you as the kind of overall management of water in the area, and you've got 41% identify you all as the manager, and that's close to double that among, you've got a big chunk bigger among retail, right? So among non-retail customers, it's 28%. Among retail customers, it's 54%. So we have those overall retail and the non-retail. So you got to get a sense, the ones you're communicating more with are going to have a better sense of who you all are. All right, let's go to the next slide, and we will look at the fact that 73% have heard of you. This is good numbers. Here's what we look for is a big differential between any of these numbers. Right here, you've got essentially 3 to 1 on the positive side in this case of knowing who you are, and that's a helpful thing. We'll go to the next slide. And just give you a sense, and you'll see in full reporting, you'll see a lot of this kind of slide. I didn't put a ton of them in here, but I wanted to give you some context. So here you've got, looking at based on retail or non-retail, looking at based on district, and then looking at based on geography. So get a sense of some of those nuances in numbers. DHS, non-retail, so you're going to be less known there. Pretty logical. All right, we can go to the next slide. So we ask them, what are you? Do they know what you are? And you've got a third, almost a third, say you're a government agency, and about the same say they just don't know. You may like it, you may not like it. If you say, we want everybody to know what we are, you get to spend money to tell them what you are. But this is the reality of what your public thinks. Okay, let's keep going along. And so here's kind of, if there's an aha moment, right, this is probably the one you care most about. Overall, what is the job, how do they think of the job of Desert Water Agency, what you're doing? 53%, we're rounding up, say that you do an excellent or good job. You've got 25% who don't agree. And then a big chunk who say they're unsure. So a couple things here. Majority says they're happy. That's good. Differential between people who aren't happy or don't think you're doing a great job is 2 to 1. That's really strong. And Probalski, why didn't you find out, what those unsure people were thinking? Well, they have no context, right? They go to school, they pick up their kids, they save up to go out to dinner once a month. They're not thinking about you. So if you want them to think about you, you've got to put your name in front of them. You got to buy billboards. You got to buy social media. You got to really spend big. Otherwise, you're going to have a big chunk of unsure because it's just not their focus. We do a comparison against a similarly situated regional agency, and you're a little bit different, right? You've got a little higher negatives, a little lower positives. If you really believe that it's important to be similar, better numbers than your neighbors, then you're going to want to improve those numbers significantly. You're in a strong starting place here. This is not a bad place to start. You're in significant positives. All right. Let's go to the next slide. And we'll look here, right? You've got higher, excellent, good numbers among your retail customers than your non-retail customers. That's logical. They've got a higher touch point from you. And you can kind of see some other nuances there in the numbers. But nothing really dramatic. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see, do you trust the Desert Water Agency to make smart decisions about your water? They don't have to trust you, right? This is it's almost a trick question because it's a self-reflective question because they don't necessarily have to trust you. You don't have this strong, big hug relationship with your customers necessarily. And what this shows is that a near majority do trust you to make decisions, smart decisions. And you've got a big chunk of people, more than a third, who say they're unsure. That is your opportunity. That's where you get to reach out, educate, communicate, and bring those people on board to the yes side and really build a strong group of constituents. You've only got a small group, and we're never dismissive of those no's, right? Those 17% that aren't so happy or don't think you're doing the right thing. Never dismissive of them, but it's a very small number. All right, let's move on to what's next. And you can kind of see some nuances here among the group. Younger people have a better level of trust, perhaps, and some other kind of key numbers. A little bit bigger trust there among men, but not that much difference. A lot of gray space in there where you get to really, hopefully, over the course of time, educate and move those numbers. And you also have some nuances there, like Black and African American numbers are a little bit more negative, but small numbers of that population. All right, let's move on to what's next. Provide a valuable service to you. They say yes. 65% say that you're providing a valuable service. Bottom line, really strong numbers. Let's keep going. Looking at these numbers based upon, again, some kind of demographics, retail customers are going to have a much higher, recognition of that than your non-retail customers. And there's some nuances there among the districts. And so, you can kind of understand what that might entail, a District 3 versus some others. And again, DHS being non-retail, they're just going to have less exposure. Okay. Going on to the next one, we've got more or less valuable than other government agencies and utilities. well, if you just look at the two numbers, more valuable versus less valuable, big numbers right there in being more valuable versus less valuable, but a whole bunch of people just in that middle saying just about the same, right? It's kind of that, there's a theme there of you're doing good, you're fine, I don't think about you that much. And so if you want them to think about you, you got to kind of do the work to get them to think about you and put in that effort. And then let's look at the next slide, and you can see, again, some kind of nuances there. Here, you've actually got a jump there among, Black and African-American constituency who says you're more valuable, and some others that jump out there a little bit, like the younger respondents as well. So we can keep going and go to the next one where we say, agree or disagree. I'm willing to pay more now for more secure water supply later. And this is a pretty hard question, right? I didn't tell you how much, right? I didn't say I'm going to charge you 50 cents a month or going to charge you $500 a year. So you're kind of winging it, and you've got a majority who says yes. Charge me more now, right? Invest in those projects. Now, there's all kinds of other things we could have said here about infrastructure, about projects, about details, but you've got this baked-in majority support who says, do things now to give us supply for later, and I'm going to be there with you if it costs me some more money. So it's a validator for that kind of a thing. All right, let's move on from there. And you can kind of see very limited kind of, good majorities across most of the board or pluralities across most of the board with an outlier there in Cathedral City. Okay, so agree or disagree again. When people use water efficiently, they should be billed at a lower rate than people who use water inefficiently, only among retail customers. People agree with that statement. If you use more inefficiently, then you ought to be paying a different rate, being billed more. Or if you use it efficiently, you should be billed less. Big differential there. All right, let's move on from that. It's important that we help low-income California residents who can't afford to pay their water bills, even if it means I have to pay extra in taxes or fees to cover them. A majority says yes. This is a theme that we see. You are not unique, right? In other parts all throughout California, we see it kind of as our responsibility, as whether it's a fairness thing, an American thing, we all should have quality water. And this is not a value judgment by me, but this is the public saying that I'm willing to pay a little bit more to make sure that everyone else has the opportunity to have some water. So you've got majority support for that within the district. Let's keep going and go to the next slide. Desert Water Agency should be doing all it can to connect customers to recycled water, even if it means everyone pays for this water reliability, for the reliability it brings. Again, you've got a majority support for connecting to recycled water when that opportunity comes up. And if we go to the next slide, I think we're going to see, well, if we go back for a second, I'll just comment on it. There is this was only among retail customers. Some of these are noted specifically. Some of these questions were only relevant in the case, and this was only among retail customers. All right, so the next one is kind of a fun one. We do get into this, we call this puppies and kittens category of number. It's important to save water all the time, not just during a drought. And you've got this 94% number. So what this says is there may be some concern over conservation or fatigue. Well, there may be some of that, but the bottom line is you don't have to, you can be out there talking about being efficient with water and being conserving with water, and they're going to get it. They're not going to be, your public is not going to be pushing back and saying, no, I want to be wanton with water. They're going to understand that in general we should be judicious with how we use water. They wholesale, essentially everyone you talk to is going to be supportive of that kind of a message. So you get to really talk about that on the regular. Next up, 24, we've got this question we ask about your how strict you are on water waste. Well, you've got only 5% that say you're too strict. And you got 37%, more than a third, who say you're not strict enough. And you've got a big chunk who say just about right, and a whole bunch who say, I just don't know. I'm just not tuned into that sort of thing. I guess the point here is you get to, turn the screws a little bit if you need to, because you've got a whole group of the public who will be very supportive. And then the next slide, I think, is very informative. We're going to probably go back to this, probably, every few days, whenever there's a message about conservation. What is the motivators? What brings people to want to conserve and use less water? Reducing their water waste or water use, and you've got this great cascading set of information of, well, number one, they don't want to be wasteful. Which is kind of a very interesting concept. And then from there, they want to protect local water resources, and from there, they want to ensure water supplies for future generations, which is a message that we see, this prospective message that we see throughout the state. None of those are bad messages to use. So if you have a preference for one of them, that's the one you get to use, but the ones at the top are the most effective, and your staff's going to be really be able to rely on this on the regular to push those messages out there and when they're talking to the public about water use. Next up, and we're getting to the end here, how satisfied are you with the taste of the water that comes out of the tap in your home? Again, only among retail customers. 62% say they're satisfied, 5% say they're unsatisfied. So almost a 2-to-1 differential there. This is one where you get to decide if this is really important and you want to dive into it. But you got a big majority who says they're happy with how water tastes. You also have a lot of people who just don't drink water out of the tap. They drink other things. All right, and then we can go on to the next one. Do you feel that the water that comes out of your tap is safe to drink? This is a much more reassuring number. 74% say that it's safe, 21% say it's unsafe. If there was ever a number that you wanted to attack, from a policy perspective, you might say 21 might be it, right? We want everyone to know that our water is safe. We want to know them to know that we do 10,000, lab tests a year or whatever those numbers are. So that might be one that you want to go after, but this is really, really strong. Are you going to get that down to, more than a few points? Probably not, because you're going to have the baked-in distrust of government, baked-in mistrust of institutions anyway. So you're probably not going to change that too much. You've got big support of people who feel like it's safe. 62%, 74%. All right. From there, we can go on to the next slide, and I'm open to questions. And as I said, big, thick reporting that you'll get the chance to read through during your bedtime reading hours. And we are infinitely available to staff and board as requests to dive in deeper and make sure the data that we provide is actionable for the foreseeable future, to make sure that this thing doesn't just sit on a shelf, make sure it gets used every day.
Before I turn it to our board members, I'd like to ask staff, did you get what you were requesting with this report from our vendor?
Yes, sir, we did. He was very responsive to our need to kind of shift gears kind of mid-project, which we really appreciated, and really making sure that the questions that, or not really the questions that we wanted to get, but the answers that we wanted to get were delivered. So we found this to be very helpful, and you'll see in here there's information about media sources, communication preferences, and for us it will also really allow us to stratify our audiences and get the right message to the right groups of people. And then the other element that we were hoping to achieve with this project was to set a baseline so that maybe 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we can do another survey like this where we're asking the same or mostly the same questions, and we can compare where we are today versus where we are a few years from now.
Is this the first time DWA has used?
No. Desert Water Agency has used Probolsky Research for solo projects and as a member of CV Water Counts and for some confidential projects.
Thank you. All right, Director Gracia, any comments or questions?
Just for clarification, if you go back to your last slide, the one on water safety,
Yeah.
was this asked universally to every respondent, or was it, or do you have results from various electoral divisions?
Sure. So it was only among retail customers, but yes,
Okay.
we have it broken down by everything within the retail service area, every which way.
Okay, good, thank you.
Director McKenna?
Yeah, this is riveting. Riveting stuff. It's a page turner. I learned a lot of information, a lot of new stuff here. Mostly, it's good news. I think that we can compliment the staff on the impression the public has of the agency. I find that good news. A lot of surprises, too. I think my district, Division Number 2, is probably the lowest income part of the agency's territory. And in there, the customers are prepared to pay more for secure water supply, and they're prepared to pay more to help lower income customers. And I thought, that's very informative. I didn't know that. I wasn't expecting to see that. So, like I said, it's a page turner full of surprises, full of very useful information, and it's full of good news, actually. Thanks.
President Ortega, questions or comments?
No questions, but comments. I'll tag along with what Secretary Treasurer McKenna has just said, and that I find this information not just at the agency level, but also at the district level or divisional level to be quite informative, and specifically those two sections that Secretary Treasurer McKenna pointed out as far as our customers overall wanting to pay more water, willing to pay more for a secure water future, as well as to cover the cost of maybe those people who are less able to pay for water service. That was quite enlightening. And overall, I just feel like this gives us so much as an agency to work with over the next few years to again address some of those areas where we feel as an agency and as a board that we should be focusing on in terms of that message. And I would say it's not just the message itself, but the action too that this board takes, that this agency will take and again, when I mean by action, I mean actual concrete action as opposed to just messaging. So I'm really, really happy to see this and glad we have this. And as Adam said, this is not something meant to sit on the shelf. This is meant to be used and to be used regularly. And I can't wait till I get back to California for my copy of this report. So thank you very much.
And I have a question for staff. The prior time that we did this survey, any changes up or down with what we currently have in front of us?
So the last time we conducted a survey, I believe it was 2016, it may have even been 2015, and it was, I think, 18 questions. It was a very short survey. So we didn't want to really tie ourselves to that because we were a much different agency then, and we definitely didn't do the wholesale retail approach. So we really wanted to use this as the benchmarking opportunity and not look backwards. But in comparing the two, I didn't see anything incredibly stark that stood out. But I'll defer to Adam on whether he saw anything that was worth noting.
You know, I think if you'll give me the luxury of going back and looking for any specific comparisons, and I'll send that through staff. If we think that there's anything really exciting to look at, we'll add a chart, to show some differences. But I think Ashley's probably right.
Yeah, I can appreciate this more robust survey becomes a benchmark, but it would be interesting to see the past.
Cool.
I have no other further questions, and I want to thank you for doing such a thorough job, Adam, and for staff for requesting it. It's a needed thing. Customer service is what we're all about. We all are serving customers, and someone is a customer to all of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to number 8, Secretary Treasurer report for March 23.
The financial highlights. The water sales revenues just over $3 million. Reclamation sales revenue $46,000, and construction deposits $26,600. $29,000 was included in miscellaneous cash receipts for credits received from Thatcher Inc. The agency paid out $2,724,000 in accounts payable. Year-to-date water sales are 5% under budget. Total revenues are 4% under budget, and expenses are 8% under budget. There were 23,468 active services, which is a net increase of 39. And that's a big increase for our usual month. The general fund received $468,000 in property taxes, $22,060 in replenishment assessments from private pumpers. The general fund paid out $1,097,000 in state water project charges, making a year-to-date total of $16 million. No question, that's our biggest expense. The wastewater fund received $164,000 in receipts and paid out $143,000 in payables. That's the highlights.
Very good. Any questions for our Secretary Treasurer, Dr. Grasha?
No questions, thank you.
President Ortega?
No, thank you.
And I have none. Thank you very much. That takes us down to our General Manager's report.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Vice President, members of the board. The very first item is the State Water Project, Article 21, Supplemental Water. The Article 21 is a reference to an article in our contract for water supply with the State Water Project, and it refers to an interruptible water supply. So in years like this where we have a lot of snowpack and a lot of rain, a lot of the pumping restrictions in the Delta are, relieved. So they're able to pump as much water as they can possibly pump, and then that water comes south to San Luis Reservoir where it can be stored until that reservoir fills. And when that reservoir fills, then contractors are given an opportunity to take what they call the interruptible water, which is water that's not always available. So that's why it's an interruptible water supply. It's over and above our Table A allocation at that point. So if we have a place to put the water, really the problem for most contractors is where do you put the water? Because in a year like this, demands are low right now. So you have to have banking programs or surface storage somewhere that you can put that water and store it for later on in the year. And we're lucky enough to have share in the banking program with Metropolitan. They have a lot of banking programs for which we're paying for now under our new agreement. And we're able to have access to this Article 21. And the way that the state parses it out is that it's based on your Table A. So every contractor has an opportunity for this water based on their Table A base amount. And so we've been able to secure 3,000 acre feet, which is great. And hopefully we'll be able to take in all the rest of the Table A that's available. Right now, I believe it's still available. So each week they do an assessment, they let the contractors know how much is available, and then we apply for it. The next item is the Human Resources Meeting and Activities. Quite a few webinars on leadership, traditional workplace to flexible, strategic planning for HR professionals. We did some testing for temporary file clerk position. We also had Department of Transportation drug testing, intern interviews. We had our Lincoln Financial representative on site for the employees. We're still working with Paycom, our new payroll program, and getting everyone familiar with that. We had interviews with a temporary file clerk position. Ms. Hopping attended the Palm Desert High School Career Fair and also went to Shadow Hills School, where she met with a lot of excited high school people that were excited about the opportunities in water, and also they got a few things from us, some Chotsky items. And we had a new employee orientation. On the leak report, you can notice that the total at the bottom is 24, which is a lot more in line with what we typically expect for a 2-week period. In fact, it's low. We have 3 pipelines that are in the replacement pipeline projects: Avenida Caballeros, Luring Drive, and Via Vaquero Road. And next item is my meetings and activities. Had our monthly IT department review, GRS transition update, Whitewater property, we have a property up there that we're looking at and working on. We had a state water contractor meeting on SB 687. The contractors felt that that was an urgent bill that needed to be reviewed. Working on a RAC, our RAC charge currently. We had a DWA Conservation and Public Affairs Committee meeting. Also worked on a GSA well form survey for the Department of Water Resources. DWA Finance Committee meeting, DWA Executive Committee meeting, had a state water contractor WISIP coordination meeting, checked in with our lobbyist. We had a state water contractor Class 8 meeting. Class 8 are all the contractors down in this end of Southern California. So we get together to discuss state water contractor issues as a group. And then we had our DWA, MWD, and CVWD coordination meeting, which is a monthly meeting. And we're currently receiving water at the Whitewater outlet. So that was the main topic of that meeting. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for our general manager on his report?
Only a comment. I drove by with the impressive flow coming down the Whitewater River maybe a week ago.
I believe we're up to around 350 CFS, and we'll be going to 725 by next Thursday, so it'll be even more.
We could
Great
whitewater
news.
raft.
Yeah,
on that.
it was. I was like, wow, I haven't seen that in a while.
And I think there's a couple hundred CFS of natural flow in there too, so.
Yeah.
Director McKenna?
Well, a follow-up question on that. Are we getting all of that into the recharge?
Yes, all of it's going to the recharge basin.
Wonderful. President Ortega?
Also very impressive in terms of the amount of water that we're receiving, but I'm also impressed that it appears that we had no fire hydrants knocked over in the last couple of weeks. Since that's usually how we start. What's that? I'm sorry?
A couple of months ago, I decided I wasn't going to report on that anymore.
Okay.
So you won't be singing unless you want it back.
No, I think I'm all right.
Okay, all right.
All right, and I have no questions or comments for you. Thank you very much. That takes us down to director's reports on meetings, events attended on behalf of the agency. Director Gracia.
Well, there were a couple. Let me see if I can find those here. Desert Valley Builders Association on April 13th was a routine lunch with a presentation by one of our city managers on activities in that city. The CVWD board meeting on April 11th. And there was interesting information there in regard to Senate Bill 414, which is a proposal to outlaw AstroTurf is what I call it, but it's got a new name now. So anything green, there's a war on everything green now in the water world. Green grass or fake green grass, and no longer considered to be something that we should be promoting, I guess. Also, we had the Conservation and Public Affairs Committee meeting, and we had this presentation that you just received from Adam, which I found extraordinarily helpful. during the run-up to running for this seat, many of the things that were memorialized in that poll were things that I, felt, instinctively. And now to see it, including the excellent reputation of this district. So it's something that I'm looking forward to as we continue on to see how we're going to continue even to improve that and get into the details of how, the marketing department is planning to attack some of those shortcomings on a couple of items, but nothing that a real concern to the district here in the Palm Springs service area. Also, this was the Building Industry Association of Riverside County on April 6th was a presentation by Supervisor Gutierrez, who was just elected to the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. He, during his report, which was excellent, I might add, he's a very impressive guy. If you ever have the chance, he's going to be around a long time, and those of you that play in that part of the political game, he's someone that you're going to have to. Anyone would do well to get to know Supervisor Gutierrez. Afterwards, I had a chance to talk to him for quite a bit of time out after the meeting, and his chief of staff was there, and there's a real interest in. He asked me where my division was, and I said, well, it at least butts up against your district. And he had given during the meeting a report on his desires to make Cabazon a more developer-friendly area for future housing developments. But they have a problem with water up there. So I have a feeling that somewhere along the line we're going to be hearing back. Apparently they only have one well up there. I caught bits and pieces of that, but I don't think we've heard the last of a potential relationship up in that area. And with that, I thank you.
Dr. McKenna.
I normally watch the Desert Hot Springs City Council, but they meet the same day we do. But last time, I went to a pitch competition organized by University UCR Riverside, and there was postgraduate students, PhD candidates, making pitches in a contest for a prize. But one of the pitches was adapting smart irrigation controllers, key to optimizing water conservation. And there's a PhD student in Riverside studying smart irrigation controllers. And quite a broad discussion ensued among the audience. So I went in a personal capacity, but I ended up in a slightly official capacity. There's a fair amount of misunderstanding about what a smart water meter is. And people thought, well, they stop one day, but they do more watering the next day. And that's just wrong. So there was an educational opportunity, which I participated in. This candidate, he had an idea that the smart controllers could be controlled by the water agencies in the same way that, thermostat in my house, you can open it up to Edison to turn it off in peak periods. And I know it's a leap from the technology we have here today, but it's an interesting idea that smart controllers could be controlled in extreme situations where you could turn off people who are watering during the day without them even asking you to. So it was food for thought. It was a very interesting meeting. I also monitored Mission Springs Water District on Zoom. A very interesting public comment came up at the start of their meeting yesterday. A customer showed up and said, I want a sewer. I'm tired of my septic tank. It's a headache. Everyone on my street has septic tanks. They're all a headache. And it struck a chord in me because I have a septic tank. And it's not a headache, but it's I've been waiting 14 years to be hooked up to the sewer. I think you are too. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I know one of their directors normally watches us. So get on it, Let's crank up the conversion program up there. that effluent goes into the hot water aquifer. I'm not thrilled with that concept, but that's what's happening. So I want to encourage them to crank up their mitigation of septic tanks. That's it for me.
Very good. President Ortega.
Yes, thank you. So last Friday, we had our quarterly board meeting for Aqua Region 9. And we received a briefing or a debriefing from staff at Aqua, as well as from Patrick O'Dowd, who organized that Salton Sea tour. And other than there was a survey was done afterward taken of the participants for various comments about the tour. And I think as I think my colleagues who were able to attend that tour on that day will agree, it was an excellent program. I guess there were a few things called out with regard to like the lunch service that perhaps people were not so pleased with, but if that's the worst thing that or if that's the thing that gets people a little bit wound up, then I think that I was sure it would be viewed as a very successful program. We also discussed the upcoming program for the Aqua Conference in Monterey next month. And Region 9 will be sponsoring a program, and it will be on the wastewater facility in Highland that I discussed or I think brought up at this meeting of the board maybe a few months ago. I was able to attend as part of the Region 9 board a tour of the facility, which was incredibly impressive. And so we will be presenting that as Region 9 at Aqua. And so I encourage my fellow board members to consider that as part of their offerings when they're in Monterey next month. Also, I wanted to point out, and I think this may have already gone out as an email to the other members of the board, or it could possibly be coming a little bit later, but there will be, you may be aware that Aqua will have elections coming up later this year. I think the election deadline is sometime in September, but the call for candidates has gone out as of yesterday, so that's something to look at if you're interested. And then here I am today in Washington, D.C. With the NWRA conference. Yesterday was a very full day of Capitol Hill, meeting first with the legislative aid for Congressman Calvert, followed by the guru of water in Senator Feinstein's office, and then also a similar meeting in Senator Padilla's office. So it was a long day on the Hill. And thanks to Water Strategies and Chris Pauley, they were able to get that pulled together fairly quickly. And what's even more impressive, or at least maybe not more impressive because I haven't actually had the meeting yet, but this afternoon at 5 o'clock, I will be also meeting with the legislative aid on water for Congressman Ruiz, which has been whose office has been somewhat elusive for at least the time that I've been on the board. But I want to remind my board member colleagues that despite the fact that our office is located in the district that Congressman Calvert represents, many of our constituents in Cathedral City and the unincorporated parts of Western Coachella Valley, as well as the city of Desert Hot Springs, reside in Congressman Ruiz's district. And so I feel it's important that he be part of that conversation too, not simply because our headquarters happens to be no longer located in his district. So I'm looking forward to that meeting this afternoon. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Vice President.
Thank you very much. And I have nothing to report from the last meeting till now, except we did have an executive committee meeting. I didn't do anything for the district in that interim. So that takes us to our director's comments or requests. Any requests or comments, Director Gracia?
I have no reports or requests.
Director McKenna?
I feel I've made them already, thank you.
Yep. And President Ortega?
Nothing additional, thank you.
And I do not either. So that takes us down to our closed session. We'll be meeting in a closed session, conference with legal counsel with existing litigation on, for the Agua Caliente Band of Indians versus Coachella Valley Water District et al., 2 cases. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, MSWD versus DWA. And C, existing litigation, AT&T versus County of Riverside. And so we will convene now to closed session.
Recording
Okay.
in progress.
Perfect timing. We just left our closed session, and we have no reportable action, and we bring this meeting to a close. Thank you very much.